evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 59 of the Thrifty Marketer Talks. The primary reason I run this show is to meet interesting people from all walks of life, right? So we have amazing marketers coming in, we have amazing coaches coming in, and a lot of interesting leadership coaches and everybody. So today I have a special guest with me. I have been following her for the last 2 years, thanks to Mark Schaefer. She's a close friend of him, and I started following her content, her work, her insights for the last 2 years, and it's a privilege to have her here. So today I have Brooke B Sellas with me. She's the CEO and founder of B Squared Media, an award-winning digital marketing agency focusing on social media management, advertising, and social media customer care. So her insights on the customer care CX part is what blows my mind all the time. Her marketing mantra is think conversation, not campaign. And she believes in it so much that she wrote a book on it called Conversations That Connect. She's also a co-host of the CX Engine show and teaches 2 digital marketing courses virtually at the University of California in Irvine. She is an in the trenches marketer with 18 plus years of sales and marketing experience. She has done a BA from Penn State University in Media and Communication Studies. She had her aha social media moment when in 2007, she used a burgeoning Facebook to recruit 7,500 attendees to attend a pub crawl benefiting cystic fibrosis, which made over $60,000 for the charity. How cool is that? In 2017, B Squared Media was named Proud Social's Partner of the Year for being a shining example of a social media agency. In 2018, Brooke was named one of New Jersey's top 25 women entrepreneurs and brand builders. And 2022, she was named one of LinkedIn's 10 rising marketing stars to follow. So without further ado, let me just bring her on.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Brooke. Thank you so much for taking time out. I am super excited to have you here. It's kind of, I've been waiting to make this happen for a while. And I'm glad you agreed to it. And here we are. How are you doing?
Thank you again. I'm excited because obviously you and I have a wonderful relationship online. So I'm excited to take it from online to online with faces.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Chris is here. Hello, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
So, today's topic, as I had discussed with you, it's about social listening. When it comes to social listening, I know people have all kinds of notions about it, right? People quite don't understand it, and they have their own version of it. I have heard multiple definitions of social listening itself. So I wanted somebody like you to come and bust some myths and explain it to people. So I have curated a set of questions. So if you're ready, we can start on.
Let's go. Fire away.
Fantastic. So let's start with the basics. So Brooke, if you have to explain social listening, so what is social listening and why is it important in today's world?
Yeah, I think the best way to explain social listening for someone who hasn't used it is it takes social moderation to the next level. So social moderation is hopefully what we're all doing, right? If we have a business or a brand page, we moderate the content that users share with us, the comments they put on our pages, how they share our content out to their audiences to make sure that there's no misinformation. You're not dealing with a troll. Unfortunately, that happens too. But social media moderation is reactive, right? Because we're waiting for those comments and that content to come to us. And
Right.
Social listening helps us take social media moderation to the next level and allows us to be proactive. And I think the easiest way to explain that is, people are talking about your brand and your products and your services and your stakeholders, and they're not often tagging your social media handle or mentioning you directly or commenting on your page. They're out there in the interwebs, and they might be mentioning, let's say you're a printer company, Epson is the brand. They're talking about your printer product number, Epson, whatever printer, that they're talking about you, but you're not a part of that conversation unless you're using social listening.
Right. That absolutely makes sense because I've seen a lot of people forget to tag when it is a positive feedback or a negative feedback. They just mention the brand name or the product name for that matter. So it's fantastic that social listening can get even track those. All right, so let's get a little bit detailed. Like for example, how can businesses use social listening to gain insights into their target audience and industry trends?
Yeah. So one of my favorite ways to use social listening is to really understand who your audience is, right? But within that audience, who are the influencers in your space or in your industry? I give a really simple method for social listening, which anybody can use, called the BIC method, like the pin, BIC. And that means for me, the way I want you to use social listening is to listen to your brand terms. Listen to industry terms, right? Because this will help you get a feel of sentiment and what people are talking about in relation to your industry. But one of my most favorite ways to use social listening is to listen in on competitor conversations. Because let's say, here's another example. Let's say you're a running shoe brand and you're listening in on your top competitor and you see that a lot of the negative conversation that's happening around their shoes and their brand is that the shoelaces break really quickly. Couldn't you then run a campaign talking about how your laces are tried and true, tested in the field, and last for up to 100 runs or more? You could steal some of your competitors' share of voice with that tactical differentiation campaign, and maybe even steal some of the customer base too. So, I mean, that's a little advanced, but I think there's so many things you could do with social listening.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I think the application areas or the use case of social listening is numerous. We can talk about it on and on again. All right. So now imagine a brand wants to kick off this social listening program. What tools and platforms are available for social listening, and how can businesses choose the right one? Because I'm pretty sure there are so many tools out there. How to choose the right one for meeting their needs?
That's a great question. And there are a ton of tools out there. I think the most important thing is to understand, like, what's your hypothesis? What are you trying to prove or disprove with your social listening project? Once you understand that, right, and only once you understand that, you can go out and demo tools. There are some social media listening tools that are more like PR based, right? They're helping you understand, how your press release compares to maybe a competitor or something like that, the share of voice that you have. Some of them are social listening tools where they're listening in on social media channels or channels like Reddit, any open source channels where they can listen in. And some of them are both. So again, I think you really need to understand what you're trying to prove or disprove with your social listening project, then go demo the tools. And because you know what you're looking for, when you're on those demos, make them show you, not just tell you. I want you to show me how your tool is going to help me do X, whatever that hypothesis is, right? And if they can't show you on the demo how their tool does that, move on to the next tool.
Right. Absolutely. So, so let's the beginning point. You need to have a social listening strategy, like you mentioned, the hypothesis, right? Mm-hmm. So, what do you think? How can businesses effectively maybe set up and manage their social media listening strategy?
It's a big undertaking. I have to be honest with you. We had a brand that came through, and the name of the brand was Cowboy. That was the name of the brand. When you set up a brand listener, that B part of BIC for Cowboy, you're getting all kinds of data brought back to you that has nothing to do with the brand. So I think one of the main things I think people forget about with the strategy, right? They know you want to listen in on the brand, but what are some of the terms that you want to exclude from being mentioned along with the brand, especially if you have a really common brand name or your product names are very common, like silver necklace. Well, there's a million and trillion billion silver necklaces out there. So what can you exclude or what can you use to find information that's really relevant to you? The other point that I would make is if you're using hashtags for your brand, that can be a really great way to listen in on only your branded terms. But make sure that, what we find sometimes is brands will use hashtags kind of willy-nilly, right? They'll use it once and then they'll come up with a different one. And then they'll use that one again 6 months later. That's not going to help you with social listening. find your hashtag strategy and stick to it. If you want to use hashtags as a part of the B and social listening and BIC method, because that will help you get more granular. You have to really think, how can I get the information that I want? And that includes all of the exclusions, right? That you need to have in place so that you get the best data set that you can.
Right. Absolutely. The exclusion part is also very critical. Right. So when it comes to social listening, most of the discussions happen around online reputation management or ORM, basically. So how do you think businesses can use social listening to track and respond to online reputation management issues that crop up?
That's a great question. And I think that's another wonderful way to use social listening. A lot of times, like we just said earlier, people are talking about your brands and your products, but they're not tagging you. They're not DMing you. They're not private messaging you. So when you use social listening for your brand name, your product names, you get to see those conversations, right? Whether they're positive or negative. So a lot of people think about the negative, right? Crisis management. And that's obviously a wonderful way to use social listening to catch all of those conversations when they're negative and answer quickly and try to resolve that customer's problem or pain point as quickly as possible online so that other people see that you're listening and you care, but then moving it offline to, resolve it and close it out. The other thing, though, is user-generated content. There's a lot of positive conversations that are happening out there too, where your brand isn't mentioned or are tagged directly, mentioned but not tagged. Same with products and services or stakeholders. This gives you a chance to go out, find those conversations and say, hey, thank you so much for saying that. Would you allow us to use this, share this post in our own marketing, messages? And if they say yes, then you've just collected UGC or user generated content, which is a great way to spread good vibes about your brand.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. So, talking about this marketing aspect of it. So, two other areas where, critical usage of social listening is, one is product development and one is marketing. So, how do you think social listening data can be used to inform and improve decisions when it comes to product development and marketing campaigns?
I love that you brought up product development because social listening really goes well beyond the marketing department. I'll give you a few real world examples that we've helped some of our clients with. With one client, we helped the sales department using social listening and finding those areas where the brand or the products were being mentioned. We saw that some of that conversation had a very high acquisition rate, meaning the conversations that were happening without the brand being tagged were about buying those products from the brand. We took that information back to marketing, who then brought us over to sales, and sales had never seen some of these frequently asked questions, and they had no content for these frequently asked questions. So we started working with the sales team to improve building out some of that nurture content so that we could hopefully bring those people down the funnel even more, knowing that they're in the mind of buying, and close the deal. Another thing that we worked on, I love that you said product development. We found out from another client that people didn't really love the packaging. Crazy thing. They loved the product, but they hated the packaging. But when enough people are complaining about the packaging, it gave us enough fodder to quantify that negative experience and change the packaging. And then the last example I'll give you is a jewelry brand that we worked with. And they were looking at where to open up their next brick and mortar store. We used social listening to help us understand what areas in the US had the most social chatter and the most affinity or love for this person's jewelry, and helped them basically pick where they opened their next brick and mortar store. So, I mean, you can use it in a million different ways. The only thing that's limiting you is your creativity, honestly.
Absolutely. I love those examples. There's a very typical use cases you can use social listening for. Right. So another thing which people talk about when it comes to social listening is, it also helps in identifying and engaging with potential customers or influencers for that matter. So how do you think businesses can use social listening for that, for identifying and engaging with potential customers and influencers?
I love that you brought this up because we are working on a big social selling program right now with a bunch of our clients, all the way from direct to consumer to financial services, which seems like a hard play, but it's going great. So
Right.
I think my advice here would be a few steps. One, whether you're using social listening or not, look at all of the conversations that are happening on social media, with you. Again, we're talking pre-social listening, and start to tag them as acquisition or retention. So if someone is asking you where to buy or what sizes you have, right? They're in that buying moment. That means they're in pre-purchase mode and they're thinking about buying. Tag it that way: pre-purchase, acquisition, however you want to, whatever terminology you want to use. If they're coming to you and they're a customer and they're looking for support, I want you to tag that as retention. Then what you can start to understand is which channels of yours have the most acquisition and retention chatter. And if there's a lot of acquisition chatter happening on certain platforms, that's where you need to focus your time. Once you're, kind of have that audit in place, then I would look at using social listening to help you go beyond. Again, we're still reactive, right? We're waiting
Right.
people to ask us these questions. But the next step would be going to use social listening to put in keywords like, again, say we're the Epson printer company, best all-in-one printer. If we start looking at that keyword through social listening, we can see all of the conversations when people are saying like, hey, what's the best all-in-one printer out there? We can join that conversation as Epson, give very valuable, helpful information, and maybe even an incentive to buy. So like, hey, thank you so much. Hey, here's a video on our best all-in-one printer. It's rated 5 stars on, wherever, Amazon. And if you buy within the next 24 hours, here's a promo code that gets you $100 off.
Right.
Could you close that cold, conversation that wasn't coming to you? Yes, probably not as much as the warm conversation that's coming directly to you, but still, if you closed 1% of that cold conversation, that's 1% revenue you didn't have previously.
Right. Without social selling, you never knew somebody was talking about it, and now getting 1% out of that itself will be a big impact on the bottom line for sure. Fantastic.
Yes.
I'm loving these examples which you're throwing out. It's very valid, and I'm pretty sure most of the brands ignore this major part called social selling. Nobody cares about it because most of the brands which I know about, I talk to marketers, they don't even understand there are so many conversations going around their area. Like for example, you mentioned financial services. It might come across as a boring field, but there will be million conversation going on in that field as well. So social listening, I think, is a way to go about it. Right.
As a note, I can tell you I pulled a financial listening report on financial trend terms yesterday for the financial client. The line for social listening over the past 28 days went like this. Whoop! So, like now would be the time to like get in on those keywords because there's a huge spike happening in the conversations online around some of these terms. So like the conversation's there, go grab it.
Absolutely. Right. So now every marketing campaign or every activity which you plan, the key term is ROI. So for social listening, obviously there will be a question on that. So how can businesses measure the ROI of their social listening efforts?
Yeah, I think we kind of touched on it a little bit, right? You have to know what your hypothesis is. What are you trying to prove or disprove? Because I'll be honest, some of the best social listening tools that are out there are not cheap, right? They come with a pretty hefty price tag. But they're bringing you back information that's incredibly valuable. So I think, knowing that hypothesis, and then, like I said, making sure that you also understand what acquisition and retention conversations are out there. And then how do you tie that to ROI? So it's, looking at the acquisition and retention conversations, tagging them as such. That doesn't involve social listening. You can do that without it. Then it's figuring out, okay, if we have this much acquisition happening, do we have the content, that sales example I gave you? Do we have the nurture content that can answer these questions in the most valuable way possible? Again, if I'm the printer brand and my question is, do you have any printers that are Alexa compatible? I want to be able to answer it with like a video, like, yes, and here's how it works, like show versus tell. And once you watch that video, That next step is having that promo code or that special landing page or whatever it is that will attribute those revenue dollars if they close to social listening, to organic social media, right? And then innovating with the voice of customer data that you're receiving through these acquisition and retention conversations. So making better packaging, picking your next store, picking the next color of your product. Again, the opportunities are endless, but you have to have a really steady plan to get to ROI.
Right. The attribution is also very critical here. Right. So you touched upon this, but I just want to, dig a little bit deeper. So, social listening can be utilized for various things. So a couple of things which are very interesting is, like, for example, identifying and staying ahead of industry trends, or maybe even anticipating changes that's going to happen in the market. So can social listening help with that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you know what those keyword terms are, right? Whatever industry you're in, if you know what those industry terms and keywords are for kind of the trigger, right? What's the trigger for the market upturn or downturn based on your industry? You can listen in on those keywords and watch. Like I was talking about that report yesterday where it was kind of steady and then boom, it shot up, right? If you see it start to trend up, now the report I pulled yesterday was already way up there. I would have liked to have hit it right when it started spiking down here. Or maybe if I wasn't that quick, somewhere here. I don't want to catch it at the top of the spike because, as we know, there's the ebb and flow of things. So using keywords wisely to kind of stay on top of trends is really good. And then some social media listening tools, Sprout Social, I know has this because we use Sprout Social, have trend alerts. So when you put in those keyword terms, you don't have to be in there looking at the report every day. They'll send you an alert to let you know, like, hey, this is spiking. This keyword is spiking.
Right. Absolutely. All right. So now you have worked with so many brands, and you have been in this field for a while, so you know the ins and outs of it. So can you provide some examples, maybe for a couple of them, of businesses that have successfully leveraged social selling for whatever goals it may be? If you can throw some examples, that would be fantastic.
Yeah. So with the financial services brand, funnily enough, it's not really about acquisition necessarily. It's about upselling and cross-selling. So they're looking for member conversations that are talking about other product lines. They have about 12 product lines, right? So this is an interesting way to use social listening because it's a very unique use case. And I think the financial industry, a lot of times, like, they don't have the best reputation. I think the success story with this brand for listening to these member conversations for upselling and cross-selling is really unique because A, it shows that they're listening, and B, that they're meeting the customers where they are on their channel of choice. The other thing that this brand does that's really innovative is they listen in on these conversations for surprise and delight areas where they can send out a member touch point that's non-transactional. So if they got a puppy or if they bought a house or they got a new car or they got married, if they see that conversation happening again, because these are their members, right? They can send that non-transactional touch point to be like, hey, we heard you got a new puppy. Congrats. Here's, a $25 gift card to Chewy. So it's non-transactional, but it's helping them stay top of mind. And, we feel special when, especially in my mind, if my financial brand reached out to me and was like, hey, we heard you got a puppy. Here's the thing. I'd be like, what? So, I think that's a really innovative thing that they're doing. And then from like a direct to consumer perspective, what we're really using social listening and some of that tagging, so both organic tagging and labeling and social listening, is to understand like where their biggest retention pain points are. So, because the goal ultimately is not to be able to say as like the customer support person, we're so sorry that happened to you and we're going to get that fixed. It's to fix it in the real world, right? So that it doesn't happen again. So if it's an ink that, doesn't work with the printer or, bleeds out or whatever it is, we need to go back and figure out what's happening with that ink through the manufacturer or the way it's loaded into the machine. It's going deep into actually fixing the real problem and not just, resolving the problem through like, a short-term win, I guess.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think social listening is all about taking action. Otherwise, there's no point wasting all your resources, time, energy into getting
Yes.
all this data, getting all this insights. It's all about correcting measures.
Yes.
Right. Our next question is a bit tricky, but I want to ask you this. Like, how can businesses ensure the privacy and security of their customers and clients when using social listening data?
This is what's so great about social listening. We all know cookie apocalypse is coming. Google has reminded us over and over and over again for like the last 3 years that they're sunsetting universal analytics for Google 3 and that cookies are going away. And essentially, cookies are little snippets of code that live on websites and follow you around. So like if you went to Google and you searched for the best two-person kayak, and then all of a sudden you're on Facebook later that day and you see that little two-person kayak that you were looking at, and then later on you're on Instagram and you see an ad for the kayak that you're like, what's happening? That little cookie, that little snippet of code is following you from that landing page. That's going away. And as somebody who also provides advertising services, that's going to be a huge hit to advertisers because that third-party data that lives inside of that cookie isn't going to be available anymore. And third-party data is how most advertisers make most of their money. So I think what's really important to know about social listening is this is first-party data. Social listening can only listen in on open APIs or, for instance, on profiles that aren't set to private. So all of that information that it's bringing in, and when you have that organic conversation with someone through social listening, that's all first-party data. And the key to first-party data is first-party relationships. So if you're using social listening to have more conversations with people and to get those people to become part of your follower base or your customer base, you're gaining first-party data and you're not having to rely on third-party data, which we know is going away. So I think that's the biggest thing. I don't understand why everybody isn't rushing out right now to grab social listening before cookies go away.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. Right. So the most interesting thing about you, Brooke, is you are at an intersection of marketing, customer experience, and technology, etc. Right. So the customer experience part it's very intriguing for me because I come from that field as well. So my next question is, how can businesses effectively integrate social listening into their overall marketing and CX strategies?
I think my number one thing, just based on experience, is a lot of what we see now and the way these departments are set up now, they're very separate, right? You've got customer support over here and marketing over here and sales over here, and social listening probably lives with marketing. The companies that we work with, especially on social media CX or digital experience, do the best when they bring those groups together and they share that information or they share that social listening tool to make sure that the customer experience from pre-purchase, right, early in the journey, awareness, all the way through to purchase, retention, loyalty, advocacy, right? Because that is the customer experience. The customer experience starts before there's actually a customer, and it doesn't end ever, because the goal is to retain those customers, make them loyal, and hopefully get to, some advocates, because maybe your North Star for your company is to create a community, a customer-led community. All of that needs CX. All of that needs the data and the tools that help us understand the voice of customer information. So I think, finding a way to bring groups together, especially sales, marketing, and customer support or experience, is very important.
Right, absolutely. I think this social listening projects can be the ideal segue to bring all these people together. There is something for everybody in such a program, because obviously it's an expensive program. So it is good to bring these groups together so that everybody gets something out of it. Right. So I think we have come to an end. Quick session, but a lot of insights and amazing insights on social listening. So my final question for all my guests is all about them. So I know you are running a successful agency called B Squared Media. I can see it behind you as well. So I want to hear a little bit about that. Tell us a little bit about the work you do and how do you help organizations across the globe.
Well, that's a big question. We are in our 11th. We turn 11 this year, so we're old as far as social media goes. And I think we've really pivoted. Starting in about 2018, we really started to pivot into social media customer care. And that's really where we're going. That's really going to be our focus. And it's really where I'm having like the most fun and learning the most. And I get to work with the most amazing clients who understand how important digital and social media experience is in this day and age, because so many people are shopping online or using social to find new brands, buy new products. The biggest, most exciting things that we're working on right now all revolve around social media customer care. So we have a mystery shop now where we'll actually come out and shop your brand on social media and give you a score on how you did with your social media CX, which I think is so exciting. Fun fact, I used to work in real estate and we used to get secret shopped. Like people would come in to look at an apartment and be wearing like a hidden camera. And I remember we would always be so scared when we found out we got shopped. But I mean, essentially, that's where I got the idea from. I think it's a great way to find out like how you're doing. Obviously, there's the book that I wrote, which kind of lays out all of how we do this, how we operationalize social media customer care. And from the book, we created I've actually got the workbook. We've created a whole training. Go and give to corporations. We gave our first one in January and they were floored. They want us to come back and do another one later in the year. So, my goal right now is playing educator. I don't think a lot of people are using social media customer care or digital experience yet. I don't think a lot of people are using social listening yet. And I feel like my job is just to educate people, whether it's, working with us or someone else or in-house, how to do it and how to make sure that you get that return on your efforts so that the C-suite lets you keep doing it.
Absolutely. Since I follow you closely on LinkedIn, I can see that you're doing a good job, fantastic job actually, sharing amazing insights on social listening. It's not only social listening, you talk about social customer service, a lot of stuff on CX, which is amazing actually, because I follow a lot of CX influencers. Some of them, I'm trying to bring some people from CX soon on the show, because it is one area, I thought during pandemic, everybody started paying attention to it closely. The pandemic went away, CX again got a back seat in the class, so it's an area where we need people like you to, put some sense into people and, so that everybody understands.
I'm going to change my LinkedIn title, putting sense into people. I love that.
Yeah. So it's keep up the good work and we all get inspired seeing all this. And thank you so much for taking time out today. I really loved your, answers and your insight, and thank you for your time. Speak to you soon then.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thank you. So that was Brooke. As you can see, she shared so many insights about social listening. I'm pretty sure I'll bring her back some point of time to get into the nitty-gritties of it, because social listening is an amazing tool which most brands are still not using, right? So that was episode 59. Something amazing happened. Let me just add it up here. First time on this show's history, there is a job opening being posted right away from Facebook. It's about social listening. So Milan Pelgrims, I checked him out already. So he is working on an innovation consultancy. They are looking for people who are familiar with digital validation in EDT time zone, including social listening. So connect with Milan Pelgrims. First time, I'm happy because a lot of people are looking for jobs. There are a lot of layoffs happening, a lot of stuff. So I'm going to keep it there for a minute. You can check it out, Milan Pilgrims. And thank you so much. If you have joined in, this video will be available on my channel tomorrow. So have a great Thursday night or Thursday morning, wherever you are. And I'll see you next week with episode 60. Take care.